including Eric Brown from Microsoft, Matt Federich from Insight, Scott Ariotti from Disty, Matt Johnson, and Scott Beck from Design Interactive. So a quick agenda, we have about an hour today, and we're going to try to get through our presentations in about 45 minutes and leave some time for some Q&A. I'll open it up, followed by Eric from Microsoft and Matt from Insight, and then Scott and Matt Johnson and Scott are going to talk a little bit about a case study that they're working on with the United States Air Force, and then we'll have Q&A afterwards. So a little bit about the VRAR Central Florida chapter. This panel discussion is being hosted by our local chapter here. And a lot of people don't know it, but Orlando is becoming very well known for not just its entertainment and theme park industry, but also for advanced manufacturing, healthcare, education, and modeling and simulation. And over the past few years, it's really become a highly desired destination. We've got a lot of folks moving to Florida to take advantage of the great weather, the no state taxes, and also the job opportunities. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the Department of Defense spends about $6 billion a year right here out of Orlando through the Navy, Air Force, and Army modeling and simulation community. So it makes it really an ideal location to have this culmination of theme park, gaming, modeling and simulation in these other industries to really create an ecosystem that's very focused on creating mixed reality, virtual and augmented reality technologies and solutions. So when we look at what we're here for today, which is really to talk about the HoloLens 2, if we go back to 2018, in my mind, this was really a pivotal moment that solidified the fact that augmented, virtual, and mixed reality are here to stay and is going to be an important part of how businesses and our military use the technology moving forward. So in 2018, the U.S. Army Futures Command awarded Microsoft a project worth $480 million for a variant of the HoloLens 2. And so, once again, when organizations such as the U.S. Army put a stake in the ground and say, we're heading forward with this direction, then everyone else takes notice. And I've seen myself from that point till now, there has been a tremendous amount of investment and development in the area of augmented, virtual, and mixed reality. And so with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Eric from Microsoft. Eric?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Eric Brown, technical specialist with Microsoft, focusing on mixed reality, and my primary customer set is the U.S. Defense and Intelligence community. And so excited to tell you the story about mixed reality and this new wave of computing. Kind of want to start off with Satya Nadella, who is our CEO and our visionary. And a few years back, he said, you know, if you can change the way you see the world, you can change the world you see. And one of the things that he mentioned in his book, Hit Reset, you know, he talks about making a big bet on technologies such as mixed reality, quantum computing, and artificial intelligence. And so Microsoft as a whole is really invested in this new wave of computing and specifically mixed reality. And, you know, one of our worldviews as Microsoft is, you know, this concept of an intelligent cloud, an intelligent edge. And when we think about the HoloLens 2 and our mixed reality services, they really fit under the intelligent edge umbrella. And so just to kind of put it in context of, you know, the Microsoft's view, this is an intelligent edge device that's able to leverage cloud services to provide value for our customers. And so, as you know, the world is changing, and we have been now in kind of in the new wave of computing. In the media today, you're hearing a lot about mixed reality, XR, AR, all the different alphabet soup. But we believe that mixed reality will be enabling the fourth wave of computing, and that's something that is going on today. And so, customers are truly realizing the value that mixed reality can bring. And so we really want to kind of give a definition of mixed reality so that we have a baseline. And when we talk about mixed reality, we're really talking about a spectrum of experiences. And so you have the digital world on one side, then you have the physical world that we're in today. And when you're overlaying the real world with digital experiences, that can be more so in augmented reality. And when you kind of fully immerse yourself into a digital world, that's virtual reality. And we have various devices on this spectrum. And as Microsoft, our goal is to empower customers to build experiences across this spectrum. And so we have the HoloLens 2 device, kind of in the augmented reality spectrum, but we also support Windows holographic on partner virtual reality devices, in addition, iOS and Android devices. And so what does that experience look like from an end user perspective? And so here in this photo, you're able to see that this young lady has on the HoloLens device, but she's able to see the real world, the real world around her. But quickly, she's able to bring in holograms into that view. And so in this scenario, the gentleman is now a hologram that's in her real world. But you can also kind of expand that out to really highlight the room around her to be more of a digital visualization of the world that she's in. And so she's able to see the physical desk, but also this augmented space around her. And so as a company, we've really been on a journey to enable these experiences for the world. And it started back in 2010 with the Kinect with Xbox. Many of you have maybe experienced that. And we came out with a developer edition of the HoloLens in 2016. And we got a lot of feedback saying, hey, we really want this to be enabled for the enterprise. And so we came up with a commercial suite that came up with some MDM and some deeper security controls. And in 2018, we came out with our first party applications for the HoloLens device. And now in 2019, we released the second version of the HoloLens device in addition to the Azure Connect sensor. And one of the biggest things customers were giving us as feedback is we want to be able to quickly realize value from this device as soon as possible. And so instead of necessarily having to go through a whole year of developing process to get an app, what can we get out of the box? And so we realized that the top solutions that customers were trying to solve was around remote assistance, training and task guidance, collaborative visualization, and being able to have context of data in the first line worker scenario. And so whether you're in a factory or whether you're in the field or wherever you are kind of in a remote work from home scenario, how are you able to get an expert to kind of remote in and see what you see firsthand and guide you through that experience? And then in addition to that, be able to have someone who's maybe more of an expert create a training curriculum and a guide so that as someone new to the organization, they can go through from a training perspective, step-by-step guidance on how to get the task done correctly. And ultimately, every organization is trying to be more collaborative. And we're excited that our partners are able to enable us to build out solutions specific to various industries. And we've grown to have over 200 partners across the industry solutions. And so we're focused primarily today on the HoloLens 2 device, but like mentioned earlier, the devices that we can support go across the spectrum. So whether you have mobile devices, virtual reality devices, or really intelligent edge devices, we're enabling you to build out solutions on our platform. And so some of the applications, like mentioned, we came out with the Dynamics 365 apps, remote assistant guides, to be able to solve that immediate need for value out of the box. But we also leverage our partner ecosystem to build out custom solutions for our customers' needs. But leveraging the Azure platform, we realize that the device is a great device unto itself, but can open up a lot more capability when you connect it to the cloud. And so some of the scenarios that we realize that customers see value in is being able to see a digital twin of an asset. So from a predictive maintenance standpoint, if you have a vehicle, to be able to see that vehicle, to see the telemetry of that in mixed reality is very valuable. In addition, being able to enable cross collaboration from a HoloLens and a mobile device or HoloLens and a PC, but then being able to render high fidelity graphics on these devices leveraging remote rendering. And so the value proposition really for mixed reality today, as you know, we look at the workforce that we're in, we have multiple generations, and as seasoned professionals are leaving the workforce, new hires are coming in, and companies want to be sure that they don't lose that IP and that they're able to properly transfer that knowledge to the next generation. And so mixed reality definitely improves the skills and allows individuals to get up to speed quicker. In addition, being able to allow the first line workers to be heads up and hands free. And so one of the scenarios for the heads up and hands free is remote assistance. And so as someone is actually using the tools, walking through the process, they are able to have that guidance from a remote user. In addition, as they're walking through the factory, being able to see that data in context so that they can make decisions without having to go back to a laptop or go back to a workstation. They're able to make the decisions in real time. And so reintroducing the HoloLens 2, many of you who've been on this journey with us have had experience with version 1, and in November we released the version 2 of the device. And I just want to take a moment to highlight some of the investments that we've made in version 2. And it's really been in 3 areas. You know, one, immersion. Oftentimes people are like, hey, Eric, you know, we really want to increase the field of view. And so we've increased that by 2 times. The comfort, we want to be able to be sure that this device is able to be comfortable on different users, head sizes, and be able to be worn for a longer amount of time. And then ultimately, like mentioned before, how can I quickly be able to put this headset on and get time to value within months versus you know, within a longer period of time. And so kind of going into, you know, the universal fit really helps us make this device accessible for different head sizes. The pivoting visor really enables this experience to be more personable, because oftentimes you may have the mixed reality experience, but then you want to go and talk to your colleague. You can quickly pivot the visor and have a personal conversation. And ultimately increasing that field of view. And so that's kind of an example of what it looked like in V1, and now being able to see the entire hologram within the view experience. And instead of using the air tap and bloom gesture, now you're able to have fully articulated hand gestures. And so you're able to touch, push, pull, and manipulate gestures in a more natural and interactive way. In addition, we've added the capability of having the retinal scan, so it can be able to understand your pupillary distance, but also allow you to log in using your eye as your identity. And so with the time to value, like mentioned before, you know, we've invested heavily in our dynamics first-party applications, one being remote assistance. And so with remote assistance, the really core problem that it's solving is being able to have that expert in real time. And organizations across industries are having a challenge being able to fly remote workers to help with a particular solution, save costs with travel. And in our current world state, this is something that is a need that customers are trying to solve more so than ever. And so remote assistance out of the box allows you to bring in that remote worker to give you that guidance and provide context. In addition to that, being able to, you know, guide your employees on, you know, hands-on training. And so if you don't have access to that asset, how can you, you know, maybe walk through the process of building something in a virtual way? In addition, be able to understand from a data perspective, you know, how long does it take for my employees to get through this particular task, and then be able to tie that data back to a learning management system or some other way that you're tracking data. And here, you know, like mentioned before, we are really investing on our cloud services to enhance the capabilities of the device. And one of the biggest asks customers were asking is like, hey, this is great to be able to render here on the mobile device, but some of our scenarios dealing with product planning and building out things, we really want to see the 3D content in the same fidelity as we see on our PCs. And so with remote rendering, we're now enabling customers to see those high fidelity content on the HoloLens device in real time. And so, like mentioned before, this is now, the future is now. And so HoloLens 2 has been proven out across various industries. And here's a slide that kind of showcases some customers across industries that have realized true ROI, whether it's leveraging remote assistance, training and guidance, or remote collaboration. And so with that, I definitely appreciate your time, and we are definitely happy to answer any of your questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eric. I think the whole industry has been anxiously awaiting the arrival of the HoloLens 2, and as I go around and talk to various customers and partners, people are just overall very pleased with the product, and now starting to really look at how do we take advantage of some of these cloud services. So a lot of activity going on, and really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us here today. And also, I believe there's some videos that you have on your website. If folks want more information, we'll make sure to get the link out after this webinar so people can visit those as well. And once again, we'll be taking questions at the end of the webinar, so I'm sure there's going to be some. Okay, so now I'd like to turn it over to Matt from Insight.
Yeah, thank you. So Matt Fedorovich here with Insight, and I'm the national lead for immersive technology here at Insight, so covering a lot of different technologies in spatial computing and mixed reality, like the HoloLens 2. Today, what I want to do is walk through just a couple different pieces and have a quick agenda, kind of level set on who Insight is, talk about our partnership with Microsoft, talk a little bit about the enterprise journey, but focus in on the speed to market and how everybody can get a little bit faster to market or into the business and an integration with HoloLens 2, and then talking about managing your rollout. So who is Insight? So Insight is really, you can go to the next slide, is really about what device manufacturers and consulting companies can't deliver, kind of an end-to-end scale. And it's what we call a super solution integrator. And it really covers everything from devices to services to solutions within any industry. And because of that kind of global scale and reach cross industry, we then fall into the next slide, which is what we get asked by our clients all the time. I need help understanding use cases and building applications. And that falls directly into our digital innovation group, where we do all of our custom application development, learning, and highly technical support. If they need devices, we fall back into our supply chain optimization or device procurement, also known as value-added reseller, which is where you can basically purchase your devices ready to go out of the box. And then if you do need help getting those devices ready to go, maybe a little bit of device management, that's where Connected Workforce falls into play. And then bringing out the connections to either the cloud or your on-prem is where CDCT really lends its play. And how this aligns with Microsoft is, we've done a lot with Microsoft over the years, large case studies, a lot of different solutions. We're the reseller for HoloLens 1, and we did a lot of different motions for HoloLens 1, but also moving into HoloLens 2 now. And today I can say that HoloLens 2 is available now. We are moving into motions where devices are available, and we are ready to resell and get those out to you as soon as possible. And really what I want to talk about is the enterprise journey and kind of how we see past, just getting a device in your hands or understanding that different use case. And we lay it out here in this kind of tiered approach on the next slide, where we talk about the opportunity, which is really an internal champion, which could be yourself, just trying to figure out how mixed reality fits into the business, and then lends itself out to demo and education, which is kind of what we're doing here today, understanding more about HoloLens 2, what different case studies are out there, and then starting into business workshops. And business workshops are really meant to drive the use cases that you have and kind of produce that different KPI or ROI that you're seeking when you start implementing this technology. And then it moves into a spatial fast start, what we call a spatial fast start or a POC. And then lends itself to that full engagement at the end there. And these are some of the major trends that we see in those first kind of 4 tiers of that enterprise journey, right? It's all about the expert support, remote assist. That's probably a conversation I have at least 10 times a week these days, especially in the climate we are in today. And then moving into experience with deep interactions with virtual worlds, virtual objects, your materials, your 3D files, that experience that you can kind of share. Moving into product in place, this is all about digital twins, replicating entire facilities and immersing you kind of in that environment. Very much data everywhere kind of thing. And then moving into the training aspect, mixed reality is a fantastic tool for training, not only in the digital, but with replication of the physical. So if you think about guides is a fantastic training tool. And then you talk about insights, data insights, all the data that's flowing around us today is really just a layer below mixed reality, where we need to connect back into that and then start visualizing that to give it a little bit more value to the end user. So, quickly talking about speed to market, I really want everybody to kind of understand where you are in the enterprise journey, and then to leverage partners and Microsoft and other folks around the world to kind of speed your journey up and adopt this technology quicker. So the way I break this out is via time, skill, and effort. And we take a look at design thinking workshops, learning and development services that are available, first and third party applications that are available for you to get going, and then moving more into the custom application development, which I know everybody talks about all the time here. So design thinking is really structured out to prove out what you're thinking about. So if you have 40 different use cases and you just don't know where to take them, or you don't know where to start, design thinking is really built around that and delivering those valuable outcomes, taking that kind of structure and then pushing it into what's going to be valuable for your business. So on the next slide is my favorite slide from design thinking. It's really that left-hand side with all that squiggly line is what I call concept chaos. And it's really about just getting all of those different use cases up on a board or somewhere, and it could just be complete chaos, right? You're talking about different parts of the business, different applications, different platforms even. Like, we talk about all the time, it doesn't have to be HoloLens 2, it could be a WMR headset. It could be an IoT play, but really defining that and then pushing into the ideation session is really key, because then that's going to leverage a prototype, moving you into testing, and then getting that thought process locked down. So then you can move into an actual solution that's going to be impactful. And then sometimes you have a solution that's already available to you, like remote assist or guides, and that's where things like learning and development services come into play. This is really about driving the adoption of the technology to your end users or your stakeholders and leveraging a partner to do that. Most of the time, we talk to major companies that don't have time to upskill their own employees to train their other employees. So that's where our partnership with Microsoft has been really solid, in that we're helping enable the devices and the applications and the services that they provide to the end client. So kind of being that middleman, but it definitely helps accelerate your pipeline of moving devices in the market. And then the same thing with first and third party applications. There's a lot of fantastic applications in the ecosystem. And I think Eric did a great job of showing all of the partners that Microsoft has available today. And all of those partners are providing different solutions to problems that we see in the industry day in and day out. And what I would say about this is leverage that market and leverage your contacts within Microsoft or major partners to get a hold of those third-party solutions to, again, drive your timeline with the device to solve problems that you have today. And then custom application development definitely takes a little bit of time and skill and effort, but it could be something that's really, really nice at the end of the day. and really tailored towards your business problem. There's a lot of fantastic development companies, professional services companies, including Insight, that do all the application development in Unity and Unreal. And there's even some just native application developers out there today that don't just create the application, but also integrate with all the services that are available from Microsoft, like cognitive services, like remote rendering, like spatial anchors. You know, some of that may have to be built into your custom application. So definitely take a look at that full spectrum as well. And then managing your rollout, I think, is really key for when you're talking about any type of new technology that you start putting into business or industry. Is the device ready to go out of the box? In HoloLens 2's case, a lot of it is ready to go out of the box. Is my infrastructure ready for these cutting edge devices? There is a little bit of setup and kind of understanding of how the connectivity is going to work. You know, if you're in different types of facilities that are extremely large, you know, multi-million square foot facilities, you know, do you have solid connectivity for mesh networks, you know, for the HoloLens 2 and other devices? Or if you're going to be out in the field all the time, you know, how are you going to connect back to that? Are you going to use something like the Edge, or are you going to be connected to the cloud via 5G or something like that? And then really the users piece is kind of really key. And will you get pushback from users? And that's one thing that you really need to think about, because this is such a new technology. The adoption rate differs, you know, depending on what your industry is, but really take that question and think about it and how you're going to do organizational change management. So with that, thank you. Hopefully that was a good brief overview of speed to market for you.
Matt, really appreciate that. You know, one of the things I was just thinking about, you know, for the past couple of years, organizations have been so focused on the technology, you know, on the device itself and on the application. But now as we're starting to see these applications move out into production, we're having to contend with issues such as business transformation and device management. So it's good to know that we've got organizations out there that are tackling these problems and can be resources for our ecosystem. So thank you very much, and you know, appreciate you joining us today. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Scott Mariotti. Scott is the Director of Business Development from the Disty Corporation. How are you doing today, Scott?
Not too bad. Thank you, John. Appreciate the time today. My goal here today is to kind of set the bridge between what we've been talking about and a practical application of HoloLens 2 for the Department of Defense. So we're Disty itself is a small business based in Orlando, Florida, and we're global leaders in the development of 3D interactive virtual trainers used mostly for maintenance training applications. And we've been building these for a variety of different platforms, from air vehicles to helicopters to ground vehicles and different weapon systems. We've been doing this with a product that we've developed over the past 15 years called VE Studio. It's a platform for being able to build this content very quickly and easily. And it's mostly intended for desktop types of environments and for virtual reality glasses and that type of thing. So what we were looking at here, next chart, John, is a program in order to be able to transition this content from desktop and VR into AR systems more readily and easily, as well as taking AR content and getting it back into VR and desktop. So we were talking with our friends at the United States Air Force, and there was an opportunity through the Small Business Innovative Research Grant Office to do a direct phase 2 proposal for producing this type of bridge, and we were awarded that back in July of 2019. And thanks to the folks at AFWorks for pushing that through, and our friends here in the Orlando area at AFMS, Air Force Agency for Modeling and Simulation. They worked with us and the users out at the 76th Maintenance Wing. Part of that is the 555th Software Maintenance Squadron, and their efforts out there are to build software applications and have services for the U.S. Air Force to develop solutions that they need, and part of that is some of the maintenance training applications they were looking at developing. So We talked about DISTI, and then our folks at Design Interactive. We brought them on board because they're specialists in human system integrations and performance augmentation, and have done a lot of work with a product that they've been developing called Augmenter. So the idea was to, next chart please, was to be able to bridge these two best of breed products together, so the 555th would be able to create content for a variety of different legacy aircraft to be able to leverage the technical manuals that they have that are traditionally what ends up in classroom-based training for desktop systems, and that tribal knowledge that the maintainer has out on the flight line, and be able to capture that and bring it back. So with the SBIR program, the idea is to develop a commercial off-the-shelf solution that folks can eventually buy. And VE Mentor is the product that we've been developing under this SBIR as a way to be able to take that content from the classroom, easily push it down into the augmented reality systems for the Augmenter system to be able to do its magic, as well as the authoring of content on Augmenter to be able to pass back into the classroom training to make a nice cohesive environment for the users. With that, let's take a little look at what this is going to look like. The project was implemented using the KC-10 and KC-135 there's some engine work on these aircraft, and landing gear were some of the use cases that we were taking a look at. So we've got a little example here of the desktop application that's running on the big screen that John is pointing at and gesturing at the synapse, or the schematics that are on the screens that the users can use. And then Colin is using the HoloLens 2 to work on the aircraft sitting within the environment. So I'll pass it over to Matt, who's going to do a quick little rundown of the project itself and show you some of the outcomes.
Thank you, Scott. I'm Matt Johnson, Division Head of Commercial Solutions for Design Interactive and the AR/VR Task Force Chair for the American Trucking Association's Technology and Maintenance Council. It's my responsibility to bring our augmented reality product, Augmenter, to market. And I'm joined here today by our technical lead, Scott Beck, who will make available for the QA after the talk. DI was founded in '98 by our CEO, Kay Stanny. We are experts in human performance, having cut our teeth performing research for the various branches of the DoD, large entertainment and amusement firms early on, trying to understand what causes simulation sickness in VR and how augmented reality can be used to accelerate the training process. And since then, we've established a team that specializes in creating augmented and virtual reality training, in particular for the medical and maintenance use cases for the Department of Defense and other government agencies. Our two other divisions look at human performance, creating artificially intelligent means to measure performance and use wearable devices like the fitness band you might have on right now to understand human emotion and cognition. A couple of years ago, we saw some of the same global trends Microsoft and Insight have shared with you today that have the potential to reduce workplace efficiency and individual performance. We felt that augmented reality in particular could be a solution. We created Augmenter as a response to the aging workforce, in particular large number of retirements that cause a massive loss of knowledge for the enterprise, the increased complexity of powered equipment caused through increasing focus on autonomous vehicles and electrification in particular, and the lack of modernization in skilled trades that the next generation, these younger folks, seem to be sort of interested in as they enter the workforce. And we were asked by the Office of Naval Research to help determine how AR could be used to revolutionize the way they train their maintainers. And beyond the work described previously, we continue to work with other groups in the Air Force, Navy, and the Army. Now, Augmenter allows you to create content at a centralized website or in the field, such as at the landing gear in a hangar or on the flight line, publish it to the cloud or an internal server, make all that content instantly downloadable at the point of need by any maintainer, anywhere, anytime, and available on HoloLens, initially the 1, now the 2, and mobile devices. Authoring in the field makes Augmentor a perfect complement to Disty's VE Studio product because it empowers a maintainer to capture examples of what is actually occurring on the ground, represent that in stepwise procedures, including things such as images, videos, and PDFs. And for this joint effort with the 555th and Disty, Augmentor was used to capture content and then save it to the cloud where it could be ingested by Disty's VE Studio. Disty, or the 555th in this case, can then use that content to create virtual or desktop training. So John, you can start the video here. And like many, we've not been able to get out in the field as much as we would like. But what a great opportunity to show that Augmentor can work not only on real equipment, but we can spatialize on virtual equipment as well. So here we're showing landing gear modeled by Disty and sent to us through their VE Studio product. We downloaded it, and now the HoloLens 2 can spatialize the content on the same landing gear, in this case, the KC-10, the Air Force will train on or maintain in the field, and that Disty has already incorporated in their desktop and virtual trainer. As you can see, images, videos, and sticky notes are not only positioned where the task would be performed, but can be manipulated by the end user, moving it, its position, resizing it, and that flexibility is extremely important because no two environments are the same, and end users will need to manipulate content based off of lighting, their posture, or other factors that impede their ability to actually see some of this information. So having this available on virtual equipment supports the ability to perform a quick walkthrough or refresh without the need of having the real equipment accessible or access to a training facility or even out on the flight line. So the move to the HoloLens 2 proved to be almost seamless for us. Beyond the naturalistic hand gestures and improved comfort, and the fact that Microsoft continued the use of the HoloLens operating system, they provided early access to the Mixed Reality Toolkit 2.0, which dramatically sped our development. We were pretty much ready to go for it out of the box. Of course, there are a few cons here. Now, it remains somewhat bulky, and therefore isn't a great fit for deployment in some industrial facilities. John, you can click forward on that. But certainly, it's a major improvement in comfort over the HoloLens 1. Head and shoulders ahead of the competition, which still struggle to fit over safety glasses and continue to have a tethered compute box. Those are big issues in industrial environments. While there is also a bit of light bleed, it is typically not disruptive to work, but we have had some anecdotal evidence attributing this to a headache during long duration use. Mainly, the price point continues to be the reason why we don't expect widespread industrial adoption right out of the box, but the ability to collaborate or connect with mobile devices, as Eric mentioned earlier, allows firms to make use of hardware infrastructure they may already have in place. That said, we never did stray away from our roots. On top of our continued development of Augmentor and our work with Disty and the 555th, we continue to consult with the DoD and Air Force in particular on the development of augmented reality and virtual reality hardware. John, you can move forward. Running 3 separate research efforts with the United States Air Force to characterize human response to use in the HoloLens, in particular the HoloLens 2. We believe HoloLens 2 will be a significant improvement over HL1 because of the automatically adjustable IPD, the increased field of view, which will reduce modifications in behavior such as head and eye scanning to locate content, its increased resolution, and the hand tracking will have an impact as well. Makes it more natural, improves coordination between the hand and eye, again, reducing the modifications in behavior. We're currently running this research right now and are so far seeing some fantastic results with the HoloLens 2. And with that, I will pass it on.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to step through some questions that we've received, and I'll ask the question and kind of direct to who could answer it. But anybody on the panel, please feel free to jump in at any point in time. So the first question is, what's the process of actually getting the HoloLens 2 device? And maybe I'll turn that over to Eric.
Sure. Like mentioned before, these devices are available today. There is a worldwide mixed reality sales team, and feel free to reach out to any of us. We'll provide our contact information. In addition, Insight is one of our partners that is also selling these devices. So there's definitely the ability to get them today.
Yep. And just a little comment, we got our, at Disney, we got our HoloLens 2 devices through Insight for the Air Force project. So, Matt, we really appreciate all the support you guys have given us on that. Number 2, what is the ideal environment for the HoloLens 2? Eric, you want to take that one as well?
Sure. It's a really interesting question. I would say that the ideal environment is definitely an indoor environment, one where there is a lot of context so that the sensors are able to process what's going on in the environment. So something indoors is ideal. We have seen customers use it outside, but we haven't necessarily optimized the technology for that. We also have guidance on our docs.microsoft.com on kind of the temperature that's ideal for the HoloLens as well. And so for detailed reference, we definitely have it documented, but in short, something that is indoors and has lots of material for the sensors to process.
But that doesn't mean that the device doesn't work outdoors. I mean, I think the question is, what's an ideal environment? Because I know a lot of organizations, industrial applications right now, are using this device outdoors and are having pretty good experiences. So I assume that's an area that Microsoft's going to continue to invest in and improve over time.
Correct.
Okay, is the HoloLens 2 certified?
It depends on what you mean by certified. There's various certifications out there. When I hear this question, the first thing that comes to mind is kind of the industrial industry. And I know that, one of our partners, Trimble, has created a customized, ruggedized device that has a hard hat. And so for individuals who have that requirement of having a hard hat, there is a HoloLens device that is certified for those environments. But as customers come to us with signal of, hey, here are different certifications that we need, we're definitely looking into them. But offhand, I think the number one certification that customers have asked for and that is available today is around the hard hat.
Would that be IP65? Is that correct? Does anybody else want to contribute to that? Matt, are you guys tracking different types of certifications as well? Is that something you guys provide as a service? Are you on mute?
I think that was me, right? Matt Fedorovich?
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Two Matts, two Scotts.
Yeah, it's something that we track, like Eric mentioned, the Trimble pieces, we're partners with them as well. So that's definitely a piece that's of interest to us as well. We don't know, there's a lot of different types of certifications like Eric was saying. So just a matter of what you need.
Okay, great. How are you able to manage the device in an enterprise environment? Eric, you want to take a crack at that?
Sure. Yeah, that's one of the things that I mentioned kind of earlier in the slides. Customers after the developer edition of V1 was like, hey, we need to get this on our network. How do you do so? And so we were able to enable management with Microsoft Intune, but also other MDM providers are also able to manage this device. And so with HoloLens 2 out of the box, we're able to manage it with Intune, but also other providers as well.
Great.
And I'll jump in there too as well. We are here at Insight working with Microsoft to spin up Autopilot for self-guided device management. So out of the box, your user would put the headset on and it would drive all of the kind of provisioning and everything by the user, which is really interesting because typically that had to be done by kind of a team beforehand, right? But now everything is driven right out of the box by the user. So another fantastic tool by Microsoft being built there.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Manageability and scalability is going to be, critical as organizations look to deploy this, around the world. And so, we always get a lot of questions about that as well. So here's another one. How is the device connected, and how is this different than a Windows 10 laptop?
No, that's a great question. Oftentimes customers do ask about, this is running a Windows-based OS, is it the same as a Windows 10 laptop? And the answer is there is a difference. And I would say consider this to be a high-end mobile device. And so some of the things that you can run on a Windows 10 laptop, you cannot on the HoloLens. And so without going into a lot of details, the HoloLens runs a Windows holographic OS that leverages universal Windows platform applications. So pretty much the things that you can see in the Windows Store, if it's not in that store or in that format, it can't run on the device. So it kind of makes the scope of what's the device can do a little limiting, but at the same time, still a very powerful compute device. And in regards to connectivity, similar to a laptop, you are able to connect via Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, and now we've enabled support to connect via dongle to 5G in addition to Ethernet. So different ways of connecting. It does run similar applications to Windows 10, but it definitely has a different scope.
Okay, great. How is IVAS related to the mixed reality platform you're speaking to today? Eric,
another great question. I get this one quite a bit, and just for clarification, IVAS is the integrated visual augmentation system, and it's sponsored by the Army Futures Command in partnership with Microsoft. And you kind of started off the presentation talking about that and how big of a deal it is, and it is a tremendous opportunity for Microsoft to work with the Army, leveraging our mixed reality platform. But for clarification, it is separate than the HoloLens 2 device. And so although it's kind of letting the world know that we're investing in the mixed reality platform, I think the scope of today's conversation is primarily HoloLens 2, and it's definitely separate.
So that's, thank you for that clarification, because myself, I've often gotten confused. So it looks similar. It probably shares a lot of the same components, but I can imagine that the military has their own unique requirements that they want to build into that, and some of that's going to be very sensitive, and some of that's not so sensitive could potentially be ported back over to the HoloLens 2. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, thanks. What does it take for me to develop different apps for the HoloLens 2 device?
Yeah, so out of the box, like mentioned, our goal is to be able to provide customers with experiences right away, leveraging our Dynamics platform. But for the developers out there, if you are a Unity developer, Unreal developer, even if you develop in native, there's different modes and options of creating experiences for the device. But it definitely is compelling. When you're building an application for mixed reality, there's a lot of things to consider, like spatial sound, being able to use hand gestures, and some of the other partners have already talked about the process they've gone through. But it takes the ability to work with 3D content, and some of the engines that I mentioned are some of the common ones that we use.
Okay. What are the other software requirements outside of the HoloLens 2 device?
That's a good one. I wouldn't necessarily say they're all requirements, because with this device and pretty much anything on the Microsoft ecosystem, it depends. It depends on how you configure it and use it. But one thing I'll mention is, going back to one of my first slides, I talked about, the intelligent cloud, the intelligent edge. This is really an intelligent edge device. And so in order to take advantage of everything that we envision this device being able to do, you may need to have cloud services or cloud identities, so an Azure Active Directory account. For the remote assistance, being able to collaborate remotely, that leverages our Teams platform, and so being able to have Office 365 and Teams. For remote assistant guides, that's leveraging our Dynamics platform. And so that being said, a lot of our cloud services are tied into the device, and you can choose not to use them, but oftentimes customers are leveraging them out of the box, and so those are things to consider.
Thank you. Okay, well that's it for the questions that were pre-submitted. What we'll do now is take a pause here and answer questions from live questions that are coming in from the audience. But what I'd like to do is, this last slide here is, if you do have questions or you do want to reach out, there's an email address there for the Orlando chapter of the VR Air Association. If you're coming to Orlando in the near future, or you're looking to get connected to organizations either in the DoD or in the commercial space, please do reach out to us. We have a very large chapter, a very active chapter here and a lot of folks, are willing to help out.